The fear of failure in sports is defined by being afraid of messing up. And when you are afraid of failing, you'll end up underperforming. What I'm going to do in this episode is discuss the fear of failure, explain what drives the fear of failure, how this holds you back, and most importantly, a strategy that you can use as an athlete to manage your fear of failure. Hey there, I'm Eli Straw, a mental performance coach who works with athletes from around the world on building a stronger mental game. When we look at the fear of failure, we need to look at the consequences of our mistakes more than the mistakes themselves when it comes to identifying what is driving our fear. The reason I say that is because let's take missing a shot in basketball, for example. The act of missing a shot is not fearful in and of itself. Because if you miss a shot when you're just shooting on your own on the hoop in your driveway or something, you're not afraid of missing. But missing the shot is the exact same, right? The situation, the act of missing it is the same. What we're missing are the consequences of the missed shot. The same thing is true if we talk about a softball player. The consequence of a softball player striking out is much greater and much different when she's in a game than it is when she's just swinging and missing in the batting cage with her dad or with her coach or friend or whomever. So the consequence is what we really need to look at when we are thinking about fear of failure. So we can even say that it's the consequence of failing that is what you're afraid of, not necessarily failing itself. Now, there are many different consequences that you might think about or might happen if you fail. Some of the most common ones are getting pulled from the game, having your stats drop, having other people mad at you, letting down your parents, making all of the work that you put in not worth it. Those are the consequences that we really are wanting to avoid, which are then driving this fear. Now, it's in that word avoidance where we see fear of failure or fear of these consequences actually hold us back during games. But now, before I talk about avoidance, where does this fear come from in the first place? Why are we afraid of these consequences, and why are they so strong, and why do they impact our game in such a way? Well, it's either going to be because of what we would classify as a negative past experience that then drives your fear in the future, or simply an imagined future that you are creating within your mind. For the most part, it will be the two paired together that's really driving this fear. Most athletes, whether it's been a severe negative experience or just making a mistake and getting yelled at, for most athletes at some point within their career, they've had a negative experience where it's natural to then associate negativity and avoidance with failing. Whether that was making the game losing mistake, or whether that was making a mistake in practice and getting yelled at by coach in front of your teammates, these negative experiences from our past, they stick with us, and those drive fear in the future. I work with many athletes within my one-on-one coaching who are dealing with fear of failure, which, by the way, if you are interested in my one-on-one coaching program, I've put a link to that in the description below. And every single one of them, as we are discussing their fear and as we're thinking about what's happened in the past, every single one of them has a few moments that they can think back to where they really remember this fear developing. I was talking to a hockey player just yesterday, and he has a severe fear of making mistakes, specifically a fear of penalties. And he goes back to last spring when he was on a team where the coach would just lay into you and yell at you when you made a mistake, specifically when you got a penalty. So when we have these negative experiences in the past, they will then affect us in the future and drive and create this fear, which then leads to what I mentioned a few minutes ago about imagined futures. So now we're starting to imagine what might happen in the future. It's not real, but we are imagining it. And the severity of it grows and grows and grows to where now we have this really catastrophic consequence that we have in our mind that we need to avoid at all costs. Now, how do we go about avoiding that? Well, one option would be not to play, but that's probably not the option you'll take. That's not the option I would want you to take either, right? That's not the option that will lead to you being a great player, an effective player, because you're not playing. So the option that typically happens, or what typically plays out, is athletes playing with avoidance, what I classify as an avoidance mindset or playing with avoidance goals. Because when we want to avoid making mistakes, our mind and our body will end up trying to keep us safe. So this is where we find ourselves holding ourselves back. So you might not be making a ton of mistakes during games, but you equally will be leaving games feeling disappointed in yourself because you know you held yourself back. An example is a soccer player just passing the ball off quickly, making really easy, simple passes to avoid having to hold on to the ball. Basketball players passing up shots. Baseball and softball hitters being hesitant at the plate or finding themselves in the field thinking, I hope the ball's not hit to me. All of these different situations involve an athlete who is afraid of making mistakes, afraid of the consequence of those mistakes, and as a result plays with this avoidance mindset where they are wanting to avoid situations where they will mess up. But unfortunately, within sports, if you are in a position like basketball and soccer or other sports, hockey, where you can just get rid of the ball, get rid of the puck, and you're not really making mistakes by doing so, but you're equally not being effective, we can still classify that as a mistake. So the fear is causing you to be ineffective. It's causing you to play scared. In sports like baseball or softball, if you have the avoidance mindset in the field and you're thinking, I hope the ball's not hit to me, but you have no control over whether or not the ball is hit to you, what will end up happening there is you're not ready for the ball when it's hit to you. Same thing at the plate. If you're hesitating at the plate, you're not ready to attack the pitch because you are feeling scared and you're feeling timid at the plate. No matter what sport you play, avoidance will hurt you. It may keep you from making blatant mistakes, but it will also keep you from being an effective player, which is ultimately what you're wanting to be. You're wanting to be a player who is impacting the team, doing good things, which can't happen when we play with an avoidance mindset. So with all that being said, there are a couple ways that we can work on pushing past this fear. Now, one of the ways is that we want to use mental training tools to build confidence, because when you have confidence in yourself, there will be a greater likelihood that you'll be able to go into a game and say, I trust that I can play well. I don't need to try to control the outcome. I don't have to stress so much about what will happen because I do trust myself. And when you are afraid of making mistakes, and when you think so much about the consequences of those mistakes, we are missing confidence. We're lacking trust in those moments. So doing something like visualization throughout the week to build confidence in yourself and to see yourself succeeding is very valuable. And that's something I have a lot of athletes do. Because when we play with so much fear, we are not trying to visualize bad things. But when we imagine these different consequences and we think, I can't make any mistakes, I hope I don't mess up today. When we have those types of thoughts, we are filling our minds with images and scenes of us failing. Which is why the more we think about what we don't want to have happen, the less confidence we have, because we are thinking about us failing. By performing visualization throughout the week, you are working against those natural fears and those natural negative scenes and images that you are creating in your mind. And that will help a lot with building your confidence. And the visualization does not have to be specific or formal or anything like that. It's just about spending time every single day imagining yourself playing well and seeing yourself succeeding to work against these negative thoughts, to work against these scenes in this visualization that you're doing inadvertently that sees you failing and sees you experiencing those negative consequences. Now, the other part of this is we have to work on playing to achieve what we want instead of playing to avoid mistakes. And so when I'm working with athletes, I call this avoidance goals versus want to goals, or an avoidance mindset versus a want to mindset. I don't want to think, I need to avoid making mistakes today. My goal today is to minimize mistakes. That's not what I want to think if I'm playing with fear. I want to think my goal today is to give 100% effort. Or my goal today is to be present, be focused in the moment on what I'm doing right now. So I want my goals to be Achievable, yes, but very specific in terms of this is what I want to achieve, not this is what I don't want to achieve. And a great way that you can go about doing this is getting into the habit of setting practice and game objectives that are simple, controllable goals for yourself. These will be goals that are focused on the process, but they're goals that you can say, this is what I want to go out here and achieve. And I know that since it's controllable, I can focus on achieving that. And by focusing on those goals, it's more likely that you'll put yourself in a position to succeed. So in summary, the fear of failure is defined by that fear of those consequences, right? We don't want to have these negative consequences happen as a result of us messing up. And due to that fear, we end up holding ourselves back and developing an avoidance mindset. To work past this avoidance mindset, you want to use some visualization to build confidence and to imagine yourself playing well, since we know that inadvertently and subconsciously, there are scenes in your mind of you failing. And then you also want to work on shifting your goals from being avoidance-based goals to more want-to goals that are focused on specific controllable parts of the process of your game that will help you play your best. Now, like I said, if you're interested in one-on-one coaching, I've put a link to learn more about that in the description below. And I've also put a link to my online course, the Confident Competitor Academy. That is a self-paced course that walks you through how to go from playing with fear and anxiety to playing freely with confidence. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I wish you the best of success in all that you do.